All right, that was a little longer than 5 minutes, but we needed a stretch. Okay, so we're going to call to order the council workshop for Monday, June 26th at 7 o'clock. Council, we have an agenda that's been circulated. Any errors or omissions from the agenda is presented. Hearing none, will someone please move adoption of the agenda? Moved by Councillor Back, second Councillor Mao. Call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded, motion carries. We don't have a set of minutes for consideration tonight, and so we're just moving on to the main business item, which is the Seylynn Centre application update and Lynn Town Centre context. Now, Mr. Milburn, you and I talked this morning about it, and I said, I wish we had broken this out into two pieces, because the first one is just an information report, and the second one is about a specific development. And so we're going to do those both at the same time, but I think that some of the discussion is going to be very specific, and some of the discussion is going to be very broad, and just have to manage that. But over to you, Mr. Milburn.
Great. Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. Just as a reminder, staff from time to time bring forward reports on town centre updates. We brought forward an update on the Lions Gate Village Centre in March and the Lynn Valley Centre in April of this year. And now we have before you a Lynn Creek Town Centre update. What we find useful is setting that context for the conversation, which will also occur tonight, around an update for the Seylynn Centre application. I think it's very important to remind council, though, we are not looking for a vote tonight from council. We are not looking for direction on this application, other than we anticipate there will be a detailed application on this site in the future, and this is an early concept that council will be able to see and ask questions of, and to provide questions or raise concerns. And what we will do as staff is take that back and make sure that's communicated to the applicant. They're also listening, and make sure that those questions, comments, concerns are reflected somehow within a future detailed application. So it's an important step given the magnitude of this project. And I think the applicant will find it quite useful, and certainly staff will find it useful in terms of the commentary they receive from council. And I will hand it over to staff. Andy Norton, development planner, who can provide an overview of the context and then details on this application. And we've got a report here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Worship. Okay, good evening, Your Worship, members of council. So my presentation this evening is approximately 10 minutes in length, and we'll cover two topics. First, I will provide an update on development and infrastructure projects in the Lynn Creek Town Centre and the wider implementation of the Town Centre vision. Second, I will provide information regarding a pending development application in the Town Centre at Seylynn Centre. So again, as Mr. Milburn said, their staff are not seeking a decision from council on the proposal this evening, as no detailed application has yet been submitted. This workshop is an opportunity for council members to become more familiar with this development proposal at the early stage, with input and feedback provided, assisting the applicants in the preparation of a future detailed planning application submission. Okay, so let's start with a development update. Lynn Creek is envisioned in the OCP to be a complete community, where a diverse range of employment uses and locally serving retail are proximally located to community services and homes. Since the adoption of the OCP in 2011, council has approved through rezoning 75% of what was anticipated in the OCP for housing in the Lynn Creek Town Centre. This equates to 2,245 net new units, of which 1,449 are strata, 566 are market rental, and 230 are social housing units. This is in addition to 180 care beds. Of the new units approved, a little over 55% are 2-bedroom and above, suitable for families. In terms of new commercial development, council has approved through rezoning 4% of the anticipated demand for net new commercial floor space, equating to a little over 7,000 square feet. This includes a new locally serving grocery store on Mountain Highway, approved as part of the Fairborn project. New industrial floor space has also been approved since 2011, although as anticipated in the implementation plan, there has been some loss of industrial floor space in the heart of the town centre. The net loss of just under 30,000 square feet results from converting some light industrial land to mixed-use commercial and residential. The preservation and expansion of employment zones in Lynn Creek Town Centre and elsewhere in the district is important. In Lynn Creek, the implementation plan protects employment zones west of Mountain Highway, while elsewhere, the creation of new employment zones is envisioned in Maplewood Village Centre as one example. The Lynn Creek implementation plan has identified several amenity and infrastructure upgrades for Lynn Creek Town Centre, including a new Lynn Creek Bridge that opened in January 2023. This now connects Bridgman and Seylynn Parks and completes an important part of the Spirit Trail. Upgrades to Seylynn Park were completed in 2022, include new seating, landscaping, and paving. A new community recreation centre built on the corner of Mountain Highway and Hunter Street is due to open in early 2024. All 4 phases of the Lower Lynn Interchange Improvements Project have been completed and provide improved traffic flow and better active transportation options for daily commuters. The Lynn Creek Green Spine, a linear greenway connecting Oxford Street and Fern Street, is currently being built out, with adjacent approved development contributing land and construction costs for its build out. 2 new neighbourhood parks are planned and will connect to the Green Spine. A central urban plaza is planned to the south of the district's Fire Hall number 2 site. Land has been secured for its future build out as part of the approved Fairborn project at 1510 Crown Street. And upgrades to the Fibs Exchange are underway with 12 new bus bays and shelters, road and drainage upgrades, and new pedestrian and cycling pathways. This will provide capacity for future service expansion. In addition, approved developments have provided active transportation improvements, including bike lanes, new sidewalks and pedestrian lighting, and have also upgraded municipal infrastructure. Lastly, the district has collected cash and in-kind community amenity contributions, including construction of a new community centre, 230 social housing units and 180 care beds have also been provided in addition to these amenities. Moving to the pending application at Seylynn Centre, the site highlighted in red is a little over 137,000 square feet. It is currently used for staging in a presentation centre. It comprises 24 single-family lots and 2 areas of district-owned lane. All previous single-family homes on the site were demolished in 2018. To the north of Seylynn Centre is Seylynn Village. Construction of the final phase of this development is close to completion. To the east of the site are single-family lots up to Orwell Street. These are designated in the OCP as residential level 6, with a permitted density up to approximately 2.5 FSR. The district has recently received a preliminary application for the lots fronting Hunter Street, with the proposal including a 6-storey apartment building with 89 rental units. To the south is the District Fire Hall number 2 site, which is designated as commercial residential mixed use level 3, with a permitted density up to approximately 3.5 FSR. And to the west is Seylynn Park. The Seylynn Centre site was the subject of a previous detailed application submitted in 2017 for a mixed use development. This application proposed 412 residential units and commercial floor space fronting Mountain Highway. A total of 2.9 FSR was proposed in accordance with the site's OCP designation, and building heights range from 6 to 19 stories. This application was presented to council at the early input stage in November 2020 and was later closed due to the applicant exploring a different design approach and housing mix for the site. The current proposal at Seylynn Centre is for a mixed-use development with building heights ranging from 6 to 29 stories and a density of 3.9 FSR. The proposed density does not comply with the site's OCP designation, which permits up to 2.9 FSR, and the proposed building heights exceed those envisioned in the Lynn Creek implementation plan. The applicant is seeking an OCP amendment for the additional density with the provision of non-market student housing, which equates to 1 FSR and 24% of the proposal's residential component provided in support of this request. Consequently, an OCP amendment, rezoning and development permits would be required to accommodate the proposal as presented. The residential component of the proposal consists of 632 residential units, including 334 strata, 146 market rental, and 152 non-market student housing units. The applicant has identified an opportunity to lease the student housing units to Capilano University. 17,824 square feet of commercial floor space is proposed along Mountain Highway, in addition to a childcare and live-work units. The proposal is broadly consistent with the vision for the road and active transportation network in Lynn Creek Town Centre, with a land dedication to be provided to build a portion of the green spine along the eastern edge of the site, an internal north-south lane connecting Fern Street and Hunter Street, a bike lane located along Mountain Highway, and access to 2 levels of underground parking provided via the internal lane. Due to the proposed density being largely distributed in high-rise form, a reduced building coverage is proposed. As a result, a public plaza is proposed within the southern portion of the site, and this includes a play space and a sculpture garden. Lastly, the project is proposed in 2 phases, with phase 1 including the market rental and student housing units, and phase 2 including the strata units and commercial floor space along Mountain Highway. Now I'm going to walk through different views of the proposed development, the Seylynn Centre, and show how it relates to the surroundings in the Lynn Creek Town Centre. This slide shows a proposal looking southeast from Seylynn Park. To the left of the proposed development is the soon-to-be completed 32-storey apex tower, and to the right is an indicative outline of the future development of the district's Fire Hall No. 2 site. In the background is the approved Fairborn project, and to the right of the image are the 2 towers associated with the Hunter at Lynn Creek development, which are now occupied. This slide shows the proposal looking northeast from the Hunter at Lynn Creek development on Hunter Street. The image shows the proposed commercial frontage along Mountain Highway, the proposed 29-storey tower in the foreground, and the proposed 22-storey in the background. The proposed public plaza is shown at the corner of Mountain Highway and Hunter Street. This slide shows the proposed development as part of a cluster of high-rise buildings to the east of Mountain Highway. It shows the proposed public plaza at the corner of Mountain Highway and Hunter Street, and its proximity to both Seylynn Park to the west and the planned central urban plaza to the south of Hunter Street. This slide is looking north from Hunter Street and better shows the proposed design of the public plaza in the foreground. The public plaza has a commercial edge with a restaurant proposed at the corner of Mountain Highway and Hunter Street, and live-work units fronting the plaza to the north. An internal north-south lane and a pedestrian connection is located to the east of the public plaza. And lastly, private rooftop amenity spaces for tenants are located at podium levels. In summary, this presentation has provided an update on development and infrastructure projects in Lynn Creek Town Centre and the progress being made towards the wider implementation of the Town Centre vision. The presentation has also given a high-level overview of the current mixed-use development proposal for the Seylynn Centre site, including site context and views of the proposed development. And I'm happy to go back to any slides during the course of the workshop if needed. So this evening, staff are seeking the Committee of Council's input and feedback on the Seylynn Centre proposal to better assist the applicant in the preparation of a future detailed application submission. Staff are here to listen and answer any questions you may have on this or any other development in the area. The applicant team are here, but staff will provide responses to any questions you may have. Lastly, staff welcome feedback on the proposed density and building heights proposed, the housing priorities for the site, and any other design considerations of importance to council members. I think finally, just before I conclude, just to let everybody know that there's a model of the proposed development site in front. The site in question is highlighted with the green circles on top. So if you wish to take a closer look, the model's there for your convenience. And thank you for your attention. I'll leave it there.
Thank you very much. Was it slide 5? If I could, or it might have actually been before even slide 5. Yeah, slide 5. There you go. So with the north-south connection on overlay black line. There you go.
Oh, there.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of curious about this. I mean, obviously, we want to have additional north-south connections through this space. I'm assuming the desire line is not going to match this though. And so why have we come to this alignment versus something that is, more likely straight, or it's going to get us to the Fern overpass, or it's going to get us somewhere where people want to go. This is actually looks like it's turning us away from where people would tend to want to go from that area.
Yeah, so Your Worship, I think in answer to your question, you're right. In the implementation plan, the lane is envisioned in more of a north-south sort of design and orientation. As you can notice, to the south and to the north, there is a slight misalignment between the two lanes. I think what you can see here is the applicant's first attempt to try and provide a design solution to rectify that. What I would say is this hasn't been reviewed by the engineering team at the district. This is the applicant's sort of preliminary design concept. And certainly when the detailed application comes in, it will be a conversation which will need to take place between staff to understand exactly what the requirements are for that north-south lane. As I mentioned, the implementation plan of north-south lane is required, but the final design is still to be finalized.
I just pointed out, I mean, it's going to be a key feature of the property is to have that corridor through there, having it be slightly off where I think people are going to want to go. I think people going north in this section are going to tend to be wanting to go to either the park, which is fine, the road accommodates that relatively well, or they're going to be going to the corner of the Fern overpass so that they can get to Superstore or they can get to wherever else. And so just wondering why it's tipped away from that as a desire line. Mr. Milburn.
Yeah, all really good points and all will be discussed. I think a couple of other things to go at is, I know Andrew mentioned the different alignments at the north and south, and so that some of this is around trying to rectify and create that alignment. And of course, an important part of the whole conversation of the north and south alignments is to allow that kind of local circulation. So people who are coming to do their shopping and so on, coming to the commercial uses and so on, is to create that opportunity so people don't have to come out onto the main thoroughfare and cause backup. And so having that kind of north-south, there is a desire line clearly, and then it will give people choices too. So like you say, if they come to a blockage, if they come to a slowdown, a network, a gridiron pattern where people can now choose to divert to go to where they're trying to get to. But fundamentally, it was about essentially providing circulation for the local commercial and local residential uses was the intent behind it initially. But certainly, we'll be looking for more feedback from our transportation group around the alignment.
That was just, I met with the developer, went through an initial proposal for it. I have to say, I'm actually the green space I think is very attractive in the project. The amount of letdown of land back for that type of public benefit is commendable. I think it's going to be a very attractive space. I just want to make sure that we get the permeability of the site right so that people will actually use it. But I do think that it's generally in keeping with the nature of the neighborhood. I will say that again, this is a flat neighborhood with close access to transit. This is where we should be maximizing the accessibility of the units for persons with caregivers, units pushed up to that level 3, wheelchair accessible units where you reasonably can, stuff like that. That's the kind of stuff that could be accommodated because it's a very accessible neighborhood. Close access to the park and close access to frequent transit. So that'd be something I want to talk about, the accessibility unit of units. But no, I think from an early perspective, I actually think it's a fairly attractive project, and I think it's the ratio of public space. So many of the developments that are coming forward these days say, all right, we're going to do a tower so that we can free up space around it. And then they build a podium up that blocks all the space around it. I like what you've done here because what it does is it keeps that ground level experience very permeable. And so I did just want to say that as early comments on it. But, next speaker I have, I thought I saw Councillor Murray. Councillor Murray, yeah, go ahead. Councillor Hanson.
How many parking spots?
Yeah, through your worship. Let me just pull that up.
597.
597 parking spaces.
And bike?
The bikes are 1,038, I believe.
Sorry, Councillor Murray, you're muted. Are you complete with your comments?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. With that though, I think that's, is that 2 levels of underground parking, or how deep does that go?
Your worship, that's correct. There's 2 levels of underground parking.
Okay, I have no further speakers at this time. Would other members of, oh, sorry, Councillor Hanson, go ahead.
Thank you very much. And thank you all the parties involved for their painstaking work and bringing this matter to this stage. I do appreciate the amount of work involved and his staff as well. I'm only going to comment on the balance of units between strata rental and affordable rental and the parking situation. We're talking about importing 632 living units into a very congested area of North Vancouver in advance of any significant infrastructure solution. So we're looking at this site that has exactly the same bridge infrastructure that existed when I was a baby. And we're saying it's congested to the hilt now, such that half the time people are sitting idling in their cars, not able to make progress one way or another. And then we say, okay, we're going to import 500 or 632 living units. On the face of it, that's, from my point of view, a challenging proposition to the community. I think it becomes more attractive to the community when we focus on rental and affordable. And when we focus on reducing the parking allotment. I mean, we say here we have excellent access to transit. Some in the report, it says it has some of the best transit in the region with very direct connections to Burnaby and elsewhere in Metro. Why don't we go out on a limb and not have any parking or very minimal parking in this site? Why don't we make this a transit focused housing development? And that's something we could explain to the community. Why are you putting 632 living units in the most congested place in Metro Vancouver? Well, we're doing it because we're not bringing a lot of cars with it. We're making it a transit focused housing plan. Similar comment with respect to the rental and affordable. Our community desperately needs rental and affordable, not so desperately the balance of the community need a lot more of the strata. 2/3 of the strata that we've put in this site since, or 2/3 of the housing development that we've put in this site since 2011 has been strata. We need to balance that housing mix. I would have more appetite for this project, given that we're imposing this level of height intensity on the community. I would have more appetite for the project if it had a greater level of rental and a greater level, in particular, of non-market rental. Those are my comments. I have no criticisms of the broad plan, the design, the types of details that Mayor Little was focusing on. I'm really just focusing on that issue of housing mix and the transportation time.
Thank you. Councillor Mo.
Thank you. Mr. Norton, good report. Thank you. Very detailed and really helps. I think this might be one of the first projects in this town center that I've come across. Maybe, okay. My initial response when I was reading it was building height, but then I recognized that there's already some tall buildings there, and I think this model kind of helps me give a little perspective on it. But it is interesting from I'm a little bit of development background, a 6-story podium. Is that a big trend right now, going to 6 stories podium?
Through your worship, I'm not sure whether we see different types of building designs. I think this one again was very much trying to provide that activation along the street, having a residential edge.
Yeah, we are seeing, I know in other applications, we have a fairly large one in Maplewood that'll be coming back that is a bit more of that 6-story form, covering a significant portion of the property with an internal sort of courtyard. So it's not uncommon necessarily to see
Just an interesting way of, getting additional height, but I agree with Mayor Little that the green space is a benefit. One point I'm gonna probably ask questions on is trying to understand a little more on this student housing. Is it envisioned to be at least to CapU, so they would manage the units?
So through your worship, what I would say about that at this moment in time is the applicants had very high level conversations with Capilano University, and as a consequence, we've only received very high level information. We're not sort of privy to what the management arrangements would be. There's been an indication that the Capilano University have identified a need in their housing stock. There's been a discussion with the applicant to see whether that can be provided.
Because on a similar project that's benefiting CapU students, there's a big discussion on how do you preserve the units for students when we leave for 2 months.
Yeah, and I think we wouldn't necessarily follow the exact same approach, but the fundamental concept that if there is a identified housing for a certain population, that be secured through agreements. So housing agreement, covenants, other instruments. If anything is offered, especially affordability levels as well as the eligibility criteria of the residents being students, that would all need to be defined clearly in agreements. And I think that would happen through the detailed application process.
Okay. And I'm going to pick up.
I just say, so today, I think we really want to be talking about really the form and massing and access and egress issues. But Mr. White, if you have additional comments on the what agreement you're seeking with Capilano University, that might be helpful.
As council is aware, there's a strike underway at Capilano University. We've been talking to, and you've met with, and Mr. Milburn's met with President Dangerfield. We have they're very interested in having housing from this site. They'd like to have it on a leasehold basis. They'd like to be the masters of their own destiny when it comes to the operation of the housing. And we don't want to speak on their behalf as a result of that, but we think that they're favorably inclined to a leasehold type arrangement on a long-term basis where they would be in charge of the housing, all of the housing, not just a particular number of units. And they are embarking on that in a more wholesome way because they're getting another couple of different developments underway on campus. So where they didn't have housing 5 years ago, they're going to in 5 years' time with luck on our project as well. They'll have close to 1,000 beds.
Up to how many units at this site would be under
152?
So the way Mr. Norton referred to it as a form of units. And what will happen, Your Worship, if this application is successful or a variation of it, is that these units will be studios, 1s, 2s, and 3s. And the university will manage how the students occupy those spaces. So they might, a studio might be rented to a single student, but 1 bedroom to a couple or couples that go to school as well. So there'd be lots of decisions made by Capilano University. I think ideally they would prefer not to have the district managing that, nor us, and that would be our preference.
As long as there's an agreement in place that says it's staff, student, or faculty, ideally student, then that's fine.
Just following up on Councilor Hansler's point about parking. There's 120 parking spots for 152 units that are designated for students. Just from the other project, there's not a lot of parking up at that campus. I would hope that there is maybe other ways that students can get to campus instead of driving.
Through your worship, I think I would just refer you to the site plan. The northeast corner, you can see where the cul-de-sac is. That's actually, you can follow that over the freeway up towards Capilano University. I know in the proposal, as we've seen there's over 1,000 bicycle parking spaces. So I know the applicant is very keen to include that bicycle parking as part of the TDM measures and a key part of the proposal. And so there would be, it would be envisioned that there would be that bicycle connection as well to Capilano University, in addition to obviously the rapid transit as well.
I was going to say, after meeting the president of the university on site, he said it was a 15-minute walk down from the university.
Right. So if you look at the parking, if you look at the parking ratio, it's for the students, it's actually almost 0.8, which is higher than the whole site. So that's kind of to me, is a disconnect. We're trying to encourage students to go out there, but we're actually giving students more parking than the whole site.
And also the bus that goes frequently directly to the university is on the left edge there.
Right. So, maybe look at that. And in terms of, if this is meant to be for students, I would hope that there is some involvement in terms of planning out space, like amenity space for students, is to create the right vibe there. I manage a place now, and we don't have enough amenity space for the tenants. I'm thinking about, students in 152 units. You might want a few more things there, just to make it, that full community, so they don't have to maybe go downtown to enjoy at night or something. They can hang out there. Just a thought.
That's an excellent point. I think we certainly added value in another application that was considered in the district. Can't get into the details as it's awaiting final reading. But certainly we identified that it wasn't just the administration and the ERC, but also the student body that needed to contribute to that conversation, and that would be no different here.
That you asking for a nightclub on the property?
No, I'm just looking at my friend Herman Cedarfield. He likes a bar, right? But
Up at the university, we'll talk. Okay, I don't know. Okay, Councillor Murray.
What's the unit mix of this development?
Mix in terms of size or rentability? What?
Units, like how many 1 bedrooms, how many 2 bedrooms?
Unit size, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, through your worship, in terms of, so again, 632 units in total. In terms of studios, there's 30 studios, which is 5% of the residential components. 286 one bedrooms, which is 45%. 236 2 bedrooms, which is 37%. 38 3 bedrooms, which is 6%. 25 4 bedrooms, which is 4%. And the 17 townhomes, which is 3%. And again, just for clarity, there's 334 strata units, 146 market rental, and 152 non-market rental student housing units.
But even non-market rental student, I mean, that tells me nothing. I don't know what that means. I don't know what the affordability is compared to the project that CAP is building on their property, and then the project that was rezoned on Monashi. So I think it's important to look at what those rents would be to see if they truly are affordable and what happens if they can't rent them. So zero affordable, like 20% below market, 30% below market, there's nothing there. Is this denser than Seylynn?
What's the total FSR on the site?
3.9.
Through your worship, correct, 3.9%.
What was Seylynn?
3.5.
Approximately 3.5. It was 790 units, 70 of which were non-market.
Yeah, it was about 3.5 with a 10% non-market unit component.
How many, and so how many are those larger units are on the upper floor?
Through your worship, I don't have receipt of the floor plans yet, so it's hard to say where the 3 and 4 beds would be allocated. Obviously, there's townhouses to the north and east ground floor.
The portion that are anticipated to be part of an agreement with Capilano University, those are 1s or 2s. I mean, with multiple students theoretically in most cases. Is that the idea?
Your worship, I think it's a possibility. We're still trying to work out exactly what the
1s or 2s.
and the internals would be. Yeah.
Your worship,
Sorry, Councillor Muir, I'm just getting a response in the room here. Sorry, Mr. Wade.
your worship, there's a lot of the larger units are oriented to the student housing at the present time.
Yeah.
But all of this is very flexible at the present time because we haven't really engaged in that discussion with either CAPU or staff in general.
So I think Councillor Muir, what was said there is that the larger units are intended to be part of the CAPU component largely. And then they would anticipate multiple students sharing the space.
Okay, but I'm just wondering about those upper floors, like the penthouses. Like, are they going to be 1 and 2 bedroom penthouses? Or are they going to be like what is the percentage of? Because there's not very many 3 and 4 bedrooms. So if the larger units are going to students, and then assuming that larger, units on the upper floors are going to be at least 2 bedrooms and probably 3, then we don't really have any family size units. We don't have any rental units. I mean, affordable family, or, this is not an affordable development. And then we have 500, how many parking spots?
597.
597. Mr. Hansen's Johnny on the spot with that one. 597.
Yeah, so already there's way too many, but there's never going to be enough for this kind of development because everybody's going to have 2 cars, and where are they going to park?
The upper floors, I don't think you have a floor plan fully set for that, but Mr. White, do you have any comment on the use of the upper floors for larger units?
That's correct, Your Worship. The largest units are usually the penthouse. That probably won't change in the strata units. It's less important in the rental units. There's one rental building that's entirely rental, another building that's got strata in it. But importantly, one of the things that Adena Homes has recognized with the first phase of the development, they've been in business here for 11, 12 years now. And what they want to do is provide for some of the people who have not been able to buy. There's been a lot of people that have looked but haven't been able to afford. So they're looking for smaller, more functional, not as big, some of the 2 bedrooms will be modest in size, some of the 1 bedrooms will be modest in size so that they attract more first-time buyers.
There will be some large units mixed throughout. Sure, there will be some at the top units, but mostly they'll be partnered in with the CAPU units.
Yes.
Okay. Councillor, did you hear that?
Yeah, it's just, when we think about modest units for first-time buyers to buy into a project like this, what are we really talking about? We know what the units at Jenna and along the corridor go for now. They're in, the upper they're close to $1 million for a 1 or 2 bedroom.
Yep. New is expensive. That's just our reality. Okay. I don't see, have I had other hands pop up? Councillor Back?
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm like the mayor's comments, I'm generally supportive of the density and the building heights. I think where they are located in the town center, it's appropriate for that type of height. I like the green space a lot as well. I think it's really going to create an area for the community. I like the commercial CRUs that are on facing the green space area, but particularly if the right types of businesses are attracted, not necessarily, a real estate office or a bank, actually definitely not, but more like restaurants, and I see there is a restaurant space there, but, books, retail stores, coffee shops. I think when we saw the earlier part of the presentation on the town center, it was very clear that one of the areas that's lacking is the commercial space. We've only created 70% of the estimated demand for commercial space in Lynn Creek. And there's a lot of people that are living in this area now. So I think it's really important that that's a really nicely curated mix of businesses and commercial in there. In terms of the parking, I too would support less parking if there's interest in looking at that, and sounds like there is. In terms of the TDM measures, I'd be interested in learning more about what some of those are. I think it makes sense to have a line bike share or and car share on the site. And the amenity space for students that Councillor Ma mentioned, that was actually something that I was going to mention as well. I think when you've got this many CAPU students in one space, they're going to want, whether it's study areas or places to kind of gather and share the student community feeling, I think would be important as well. I think those are sort of my only comments at this point. And generally, I like the type of development that's coming together here and being proposed.
Yeah, and I agree with those comments. I'd be willing to also talk about, where we're hitting, whether we're hitting the parking number right. But beyond this site, I mean, first of all, you can't build it after the fact. So I recognize that I know that you're going to want let down space. You're going to want extra parking for flexibility for operating your buildings as well in future and stuff. So I don't want to underbuild it. Having said that, we're already seeing The parking in the neighborhood as well is really problematic. There's no mystery to it. You can't find a nook and cranny in the evening to get in and out of these neighborhoods. The one specifically I was going to mention though is west of the site, you've got the park at Seylynn, and already at 6 o'clock at night, that area is full, even if there's nobody at the park at the time, because residents are choosing not to pay the fee to park underground in their own building and are instead engaged in search and parking searches throughout the community as soon as the time limits go up. I really would encourage our transportation group to move those times till later now, rather than waiting until we have a whole bunch of people move into the neighborhoods as buildings are completed and are expecting to be able to park into the neighborhoods. I'd rather have the tighter restrictions in place sooner rather than later. And specifically, I want that rec center and park to have its users have the parking, not necessarily the residents from spillover from potentially underbuilt parking in the neighboring areas. So now I want the parking to largely be used. I don't want to put a restriction in it that's going to make it so that nobody can use it and it's just sitting there underused. But I recognize already, if you decided from outside of the neighborhood to go in and throw a frisbee, run around the park, go to the skateboard wall or do other things, you're going to be really hard pressed to find parking in the evening there right now. Yeah, no, I don't see any other speakers at this point. I'm not ragging the puck, but yes, Councillor Beck.
Is that a question about the childcare? Could you comment on the size of that, roughly how many spots that would be? And would it be, would the residents within the development be given any kind of priority in terms of the childcare spaces?
Through you, what I would say, initial stage, if we just highlight an area for a future daycare, that's certainly a discussion we'll be having with the applicant as we move forward to the detailed application.
Mr. Miller?
Yeah, we've got really good information in our childcare strategy around where we do have deficits. And we do know that if we apply those sort of rates in neighborhoods as we build, there is additional demand. So in that strategy, we knew that we would need about 2,000 additional spaces over the coming 10 years, so about 200 a year. And certainly we do look very carefully at any of these larger projects that have a commercial component especially, that if they can provide housing, it would likely meet a significant and growing and specific need for the residents themselves. In terms of preferential occupation, we haven't had that conversation yet, but that could be discussed at the detailed stage.
Great. Yeah, I know we've got other childcare facilities that we've approved at Lynn Creek, but I know that it's an issue across the district from firsthand experience, and I think we want people to be able to have that childcare close to where they live, and so we don't want those spots necessarily being filled up by people that are driving from other parts of the community.
Right. I don't see any further speakers at this time. Okay, so I'm going to check in with the public for the council workshop.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to say I've heard the numbers of bedrooms for the student rentals sort of being hard secured or finalized, but I just wanted to comment that I am very pleased to see 12 townhouse units of proposed possible rental for students. I think that's something that our community is lacking, and I hope that that would be included in this proposal, is rental townhomes for the student or their families.
So as long as they don't become frat houses or something.
Yes, no frat.
Wow. I've got a virtual hand from Corey Cost, and I'll come back to council. Corey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Your Worship. Can you hear me?
Clearly, welcome. You have 3 minutes to address the what is this, a workshop?
Yes. Long
night.
Vacation actually in Kelowna, but I thought I'd listen in anyway. Some of these are going to have to be questions rather than statements. There's 180 care beds. Is that the amendment? Called an amendment? Because those occupants certainly have to pay So it looks like they're taking now, the OCP recommended 2.5. I've seen many applications come recently. It'd be nice for council and the public to know how many applications since 2011 are an OCP amendment. We should be getting a typical amendments are getting much larger. The play space isn't clear whether to get that density. Play space was good. Are there shadows in that area? It's not clear. And this North Vancouver staff already have some comments and interaction, or is this the first time? And if so, what were the? It certainly looks more like an EV specialist. I hope there's no that we're not aware of. Nice ratio I would like to see. How many bedrooms do we have? And how many parking spaces? I want to get that stat of how many parking spaces per bedroom there is on this proposal. I think that would be useful for council to have that number. It's a better one than per unit. It's the actually number of parking spaces per bedroom. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's probably a more pertinent way to measure it when you're talking about student housing specifically, I guess, because you talk about the beds more than you talk about the units necessarily. But is that something we can produce reasonably easily, Mr. Milburn?
Yeah, when we do look at the town center strategy, we're interested in not just parking spaces per unit, parking spaces per what type of unit is really fundamental, because a family or a TV will have potentially a different demand than a studio unit. Sure. So we can definitely provide that as we bring the information forward through the detailed application.
Thank you. Mr. Craver, can you hear me?
Loud and clear, your worship.
Welcome. You've got 3 minutes to address the workshop.
Thank you. I'll be brief. Fundamentally, what this comes down to is that when Seylynn Village was being discussed, they were going for a fairly large increase in the number of floors that were in the project as originally conceived on the first go round of this proposal. What I find interesting in this one is that the proponent seems to think that Mayor Walton's commitment that Seylynn Village would be the highest towers in the Lower Lynn area seems to be going out the window and completely forgotten of. Moral of the story being that if you or any other future mayor makes similar commitments, I think the public is entitled to a bit of skepticism. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments, Mr. Craver. Okay, would any other, I believe Councillor Forbes, you indicated you'd like to speak.
Yeah, I just wanted to say most of the comments that I was going to say have already been said around the table. I also agree with looking at the parking, especially with the students, because we talk about 50 cities. And so, and students are younger and more active and apt to be cyclists as well. So I'd like to look at the possibility of lowering the parking as well, and especially in relation to a 15-minute walk for them to go to where they have to go to for the day. I do like the greenery that's around this project. I think they've given up a lot of the area for greenery, and that's a good thing for everybody. I also do like the fact that it's not closed off. It's a little bit skewed, but there is a way through the project, so it's not closed off. I like that. And if there was going to be towers anywhere, you just need to look at that model and kind of see that the two that are being proposed are lower than most of the other ones that are already there. So although I'm not a fan of towers, I do think that that's probably an appropriate place if you're going to put them. One other thing I just wanted to ask was the other projects that we looked at for Tattoo, it's been student and or staff. Is this strictly student housing or is it student and staff housing?
Right, are we there yet with discussions with the university?
One thing we know, Your Worship, is that it won't be first year students. There'll be a sort of an age criteria. They want to, the dormitory type living, they want to make that primarily first year students. And, you know, there's more willingness for CAPU to manage typical apartments for older students or married couples, etc. Yeah.
The university is still developing its 4-year program. So still the vast majority of students are there for less, or 2 years or less, I think is the numbers I've been told. And so, you know, they're developing them. They're definitely moving to longer stays at the university, but I think it's still relatively short duration stays. Mr. Milburn?
Bishop, yeah, it's an important question. We'll put it to the applicant as part of the detail. Is it students and staff and faculty? You know, what's the mix? We can certainly raise that with.
Thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I see no other hands at this point. So I will say thank you very much, staff, for preparing the report and taking the time with us today. It helped us better understand the project. Somebody move adjournment, I'd be happy to accept. Moved by everyone, accepted. Thank you all so much. Thank you for coming out. And if you have, we're not in closure on a public hearing, so there can still be a free flow of discussion between the council members, the applicants, and staff. Don't worry about that. Ask your questions still from this point forward. It's not like we've closed off discussion in any way, shape, or form. So everybody, have a great evening. Have a great week.